Exercise 1 is all about inserting a shot. We've got Mark here on the right and his brother Philip on the left. They're sitting on a riverside bench and they're chatting about, well, their childhood because they've just lost their father. So a lot of issues are coming up, but in a way that's irrelevant to our mission in this particular exercise. What we've got to do is that Mark does all the talking. Philip is in a listening mode, and we've got to decide when we would like to look at Philip and cut away from Mark's speech. Okay, let's first of all just look at the whole of Mark's shot that I've given you.
Perhaps if Dad had seen us together more, happily grown up, perhaps it would have helped him to make the link between the filmed images of the past and the present.
So what bit of that speech don't we need to see and take the opportunity of picking up any reaction that we'll get from Philip? Here's Philip's equivalent shot.
I'm really so sorry not to have been here often enough. Perhaps if Dad had seen us together more, happily grown up, perhaps it might have helped him to make the link between the filmed images of the past and the present.
Now, it's clearly not such a good performance from Mark, but we're not going to be using any of that sound, so in a way that's irrelevant. I should say straight away that Gordon Kay, who plays Philip, didn't really have enough time to learn the script properly. So he's got it on his lap and he's looking down to it all the time. That being said, we've got two questions to ask and answer. The first is, what bit of Mark's speech are we not that fussed about not seeing? And the other question is, all right, having cut away from Mark, what bit of Philip's shot should we use to show that he's received the information and has understood it? So first of all, because we're not going to be doing any cutaway from Mark's dialogue, I'm going to put the whole of Mark's shot, here's a mark and here's a mark from the beginning to the end of the shot, and I'm going to plonk it onto a sequence. So I can now play it as a single shot.
Perhaps if Dad had seen us together more, happily grown up, perhaps it would have helped him to make the link between the filmed images of the past and the present.
Now, to decide where we could go across to Philip, you've got to imagine yourself as the third person in this conversation. We've got the two guys sitting on that riverside bench, and you're looking at them. Obviously, when Mark is speaking, you're probably going to be looking towards Mark. But if you were that third person, you wouldn't stay on Mark all the time. You'd glance to Philip just to see what effect Mark's speech was having on Philip. So really, it is where you would want to flick your eyes across to Philip. That's the point you should make an edit. Let's have a look at the shot again and see what point you might, as that third person, flick your eyes across to the other guy.
Perhaps if Dad had seen us together more, happily grown up.
Now that move across that he makes almost offers us to go and have a look. Let's just find the absolute frame. There is the maximum point before his eyes go back down again, that we're looking towards the other guy, and it would be really good if we could then hop to that other guy. So I'm going to mark an in point there. Now, where we might return? Well, the return...
Perhaps it would have helped him to make the link between the filmed images of the past and the present.
Now, he doesn't ever look back up again until the filmed image of the past.
Filmed images of the past.
So I'm gonna first of all just come back here, just before filmed images of the past. The duration of that shot is 2 seconds and 22 frames, and that's not a bad duration, and that could be indeed where we would cut to Philip. But let's see what Philip offers us in terms of reaction. What have we just had? We've had
more, happily grown up.
Happily grown up. So let's have a look what Philip offers us.
I'm really so sorry not to have been here often enough. Perhaps if Dad had seen us together more, happily grown up, perhaps it might have helped him to make the link.
Now, the real reaction to happily grown up, I think, is too big.
Grown up, perhaps it might have helped him to make the link.
And the other problem is he goes straight back down onto his script after he does react. So I don't think that's usable. But there's a little tweak of the mouth there that might be very useful. Again, where I'm going to cut to him is when his eyes are looking at Mark. So I'm going to make that my in, and I've got my 3 points. I've got an in and an out on the sequence, vision only, and I've got an in on the source of this other shot, this Phillips shot. So if I push overwrite, it will go in. We can now have a look at the result.
Perhaps if Dad had seen us together more, happily grown up, perhaps it would have helped him to make the link between the filmed images of the past.
We're really very lucky. Going to Phillips shot is great.
Happily grown up, perhaps it would have helped him to make the link between the filmed images.
We're not giving him enough time to fully take his turn back to Mark. So I'm going to stretch that edit. I'm now in a trim mode that Avid offers. And I'm going to increase this shot and lose a bit of this shot. So I'm just going to nudge it forward until his eyes settle, which is there. Or you can see it settles and then he comes back down again. If you look to the left-hand monitor, comes up, settles, and there his eyes flick down. So that's my maximum. I can have a look at just that cut.
To make the link between the filmed images of the past. To make the link between the filmed images of the past.
Let's have a look at the whole thing.
Perhaps if Dad had seen us together more, happily grown up, perhaps it would have helped him to make the link between the filmed images of the past and the present.
Not bad at all. Let me show you a bad version of the cut, and I offer this bad version. You can have a look at it yourselves. I'll play it to you.
Perhaps if Dad had seen us together more, happily grown up, perhaps it would have helped him to make the link between the filmed images of the past and the present.
The brothers aren't really connected. When you cut away, no one's looking at anybody else, and when you go to the other person, they're not looking at them either.
Perhaps if Dad had seen us together more, happily grown up, perhaps it would have helped him to make the link between the filmed images of the past.
All of those cuts, they're looking away from each other. Compare that with the cut we've just done, which is here.
Perhaps if Dad had seen us together more, happily grown up, perhaps it would have helped him to make the link between the filmed images of the past and the present.
You should get an impression of a verbal tennis match. Mark offering a service to Philip, receives it, and he bats the ball back. Just have a look at the good version once more. Here it goes.
Perhaps if Dad had seen us together more, happily grown up, perhaps it would have helped him to make the link between the filmed images of the past and the present.
And that's exercise 1. So both those shots and the sequences we've seen, both the good and the bad, are available for download. So you can load the shots into your particular editing software and have a go yourself. And you never know, you might find a better version than I've done. But that's the joy of editing. See you on the next one.